Raindrops splattered across the soot-stained window of the stagecoach as Sophia Ellington pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching the desolate landscape of West Texas blur past her tear-filled eyes. It was April 1873, and the promise of a teaching position in San Elizario had crumbled to dust before she'd even arrived, much like her hopes for a fresh start after fleeing Philadelphia with nothing but 3 valises and a broken heart. The stagecoach lurched to a halt outside the modest San Elizario station, a weathered wooden structure that seemed to sag under the weight of the afternoon rain. Sophia remained seated as the other passengers disembarked, her gloved fingers clutching a crumpled telegram that had been waiting for her at the last stop. "Miss, we've arrived," the driver called, impatience evident in his voice. "San Elizario Station, end of the line." Sophia swallowed hard, tucking the telegram into her pocket. The school board's message had been clear: the position had been filled by the superintendent's nephew 2 days prior. Her journey of over 2,000 miles had been for nothing. Outside, the driver unloaded her luggage, 3 worn valises containing every possession she hadn't been forced to sell to fund her journey west. As the stagecoach pulled away, kicking up mud in its wake, Sophia stood in the pouring rain, her blue traveling dress growing heavier by the second. She couldn't hold back anymore. The tears came in torrents to match the downpour, her shoulders shaking as she knelt beside her luggage, one gloved hand covering her mouth to stifle her sobs. Everything she'd sacrificed, everyone she'd left behind it, had all been for nothing. "Looks like it's coming down harder," a deep voice observed from behind her. "You'll catch your death out here, madam." Sophia didn't turn around, too ashamed of her public display of emotion. "I'll be fine, thank you," she managed between stifled sobs. A tall shadow fell across her luggage, and suddenly the rain stopped pelting her shoulders. She glanced up to see a broad-shouldered man holding a worn leather duster over her like a canopy. His face was partially obscured by the wide brim of his hat, but she could see a strong jaw covered with several days' worth of stubble. "Begging your pardon, madam, but you don't look fine." His voice was like gravel wrapped in velvet, rough yet somehow gentle. "You crying beside your luggage here tells me something's gone mighty wrong." Sophia hastily wiped her tears, trying to regain her composure. "I don't wish to burden a stranger with my troubles." The man crouched down to her eye level, revealing striking hazel eyes beneath the hat brim. "Way I see it, troubles are a lot like that luggage there. Sometimes you need someone else to help carry the burden." For a moment, they remained like that. The cowboy crouched beside her in the rain, his duster providing the only shelter from the downpour. Something in his gaze told Sophia he wasn't merely being polite. There was genuine concern there. "The teaching position I came for has been filled," she finally admitted, her voice barely audible above the rain. "I have nowhere to go, no lodging arranged, and precisely $8.43 to my name." The man nodded slowly, as though considering her predicament with grave seriousness. "Well then, Miss Ellington, Sophia Ellington, Miss Ellington, I'm Wade Zimmerman." He stood and extended his hand. "Let me carry that burden too." Before she could protest, he had gathered her 3 valises in his strong hands. "The White Horse Inn has decent rooms at fair prices. My sister works there. She might be able to arrange something temporary while you get your bearings." Sophia hesitated. In Philadelphia, accepting help from a strange man would be unthinkable. But this wasn't Philadelphia, and she was dangerously close to having no options at all. "I couldn't impose. It's not imposing if I'm offering," Wade said simply. "Besides, leaving a lady crying in the rain ain't the Texas way." Something about his straightforward manner broke through her reserve. Sophia nodded slightly and rose to her feet, smoothing her rain-soaked dress as best she could. "Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman." Wade shifted her luggage to one hand and offered his arm with the other. "Just Wade, madam. Formality doesn't survive long out here." Together they walked through the muddy street toward the town's main thoroughfare. San Elizario was smaller than Sophia had imagined a church steeple, a handful of businesses, and a dusty plaza that currently resembled a shallow lake. Men on horseback splashed through puddles while a few wagons struggled through the deepening mud. "You come all the way from back east?" Wade asked as they navigated around a particularly treacherous puddle. "Philadelphia," Sophia confirmed. "I sold nearly everything I owned for the train and stagecoach fare." Wade let out a low whistle. "That's a mighty long way to travel for disappointment." "I had little choice," she said quietly, not wanting to elaborate on the scandal that had forced her departure, how the married school administrator had pursued her relentlessly, then publicly accused her of impropriety when she'd repeatedly rejected his advances. They arrived at a 2-story wooden building with a freshly painted sign depicting a white horse. Despite the weather, the establishment looked welcoming, with warm light spilling from its windows. Inside, the front room served as both reception area and a small dining room. Several tables were occupied by patrons enjoying hot meals, the aroma of which reminded Sophia she hadn't eaten since dawn. "Wade Zimmerman, you're dripping all over my clean floor." A sturdy woman with her brown hair pulled into a tight bun marched toward them, hands on her hips. Despite her scolding, her eyes held the same warmth Sophia had glimpsed in Wade's. "Sorry, Meredith. Got caught in it same as everyone else." Wade set Sophia's luggage down carefully. "This here is Miss Sophia Ellington. She's had some bad luck." Teaching position fell through before she even arrived. Meredith's expression softened immediately. "Oh, you poor thing. You must be the one the school board telegraphed about." She shook her head in disgust. "Shameful how they handled that whole business." Wade turned to Sophia. "My sister here runs the White Horse. Meredith, Miss Ellington needs a room, but she's in a tight spot financially." Understanding passed between the siblings and Meredith nodded decisively. "Room 4 is free. It's small but clean. You can have it for $1 a week until you sort things out." Sophia's eyes widened. "That's incredibly generous, but I couldn't possibly." "You could help around the inn," Meredith suggested. "I could use an extra pair of hands with the accounts and correspondence. My penmanship is awful, and the guests complain they can't read my receipts." It wasn't teaching, but it was work. Sophia felt a tiny flutter of hope. "I would be most grateful for the opportunity, Mrs. Meredith Campbell. Married a fool from Oklahoma who left me with this place and 2 boys to raise." She smiled wryly. "Turned out for the best, though." "Can't complain about being my own boss." Wade set down Sophia's luggage. "I should check on my horse. Been standing in this rain too long." "You'll come for dinner?" Meredith asked. "Wouldn't miss it." His eyes met Sophia's briefly. "Nice meeting you, Miss Ellington. Hope things start looking up for you." After he left, Meredith showed Sophia to her room, a small but tidy space with a narrow bed, washstand, and a window overlooking the muddy street. It was humble compared to her former apartment in Philadelphia, but at that moment, it felt like a palace. "Get yourself dried off," Meredith said kindly. "Then come down for supper. On the house tonight." Left alone, Sophia sank onto the edge of the bed, finally allowing herself to breathe. The day that had begun with absolute despair had somehow led her here to a room, potential work, and unexpected kindness from strangers. She unpacked her damp clothes, hanging them carefully to dry, then changed into her one remaining dry dress, a simple navy wool that had seen better days. As she pinned her damp auburn hair back into a modest chignon, she caught her reflection in the small mirror above the washstand. The woman looking back at her was thinner than she remembered, with shadows under her green eyes that spoke of sleepless nights on the journey west. But there was something else there too, a resilience she hadn't known she possessed. One day at a time, she whispered to herself, straightening her shoulders. One day at a time. Downstairs, the dining room had filled with more patrons seeking shelter from the storm. Meredith waved Sophia over to a small table in the corner where Wade was already seated, his hat hanging on a peg behind him. "Miss Ellington, join us," he said, standing as she approached. "Meredith's stew is the best remedy for a rainy day." Up close and without his hat, Wade looked younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 30 or 31. His hair was a rich brown with hints of copper, and those hazel eyes held flecks of gold in the lamplight. "Thank you again for your assistance today," Sophia said as she took the offered chair. "I don't know what I would have done otherwise," Wade shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Meredith contradicted, arriving with 3 bowls of steaming stew. "Most would have walked right past. My brother has a soft spot for strays, human and animal alike." "Meredith," Wade warned, looking embarrassed. His sister laughed. "His ranch has more 3-legged dogs and 1-eyed horses than any place in Texas." "Ranch?" Sophia asked, picking up her spoon. "Circle Z, about 8 miles out of town," Wade confirmed. "Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Raise cattle mainly, some horses." "Do you live there alone?" Sophia immediately regretted the personal question. "Forgive me, that was impertinent. No offense taken. And yes, just me and the hands 3 cowboys who help with the stock." Wade broke off a piece of bread. "What about you?" "Any family waiting back east?" Sophia shook her head. "My parents passed away during the influenza outbreak 5 years ago. I have a married sister in Boston, but we're not close." The estrangement had begun when Sophia had refused to marry her sister's husband's business associate, a man 30 years her senior, with a reputation for cruelty toward his servants. Her decision had created a rift that 3 years of letters had failed to heal. "So, what will you do now?" Wade asked. "Your sister has kindly offered me work here at the inn," Sophia replied. "Beyond that, I haven't had time to consider my options." "San Elizario's not Philadelphia, that's certain," Meredith said, "but it's a decent enough place. Growing too, with the new silver mine opening up north." "The school board might reconsider come fall," Wade added. "That nephew won't last. Heard he's already complaining about the primitive conditions." They continued eating, the conversation flowing easily between topics: the spring cattle prices, the need for rain, though perhaps not quite so much at once, and local gossip that meant little to Sophia but helped her understand the town's dynamics. By the time they'd finished their meal, the rain had stopped, and a watery sunset painted the western sky in muted pinks and golds. "I should head back," Wade said, rising to retrieve his hat. "Got calves that'll need checking after this weather." "Will we see you tomorrow?" Meredith asked. "Need to ride to El Paso for supplies. Be gone a few days." He turned to Sophia. "Miss Ellington, I hope you find San Elizario treats you better than it has so far." "Thank you for everything, Mr. Zimmerman." She offered her hand, which he took briefly. His palm was calloused against her softer skin. "Wade," he reminded her with a slight smile. "Good evening, Miss Ellington." After he'd gone, Meredith began clearing the table. "My brother doesn't talk much to strangers," she observed, "but he talked to you. He was merely being kind." Meredith gave her a knowing look. "Wade's kind to everyone. This was different." She stacked the empty bowls. "Anyway, we'll start your work tomorrow. The accounts are a mess and I've got correspondence piling up." That night, in the unfamiliar bed, Sophia lay awake listening to the distant sounds of the town settling for the night, so different from Philadelphia's busy streets. A dog barked somewhere, and occasionally voices or laughter drifted up from the saloon down the street. She thought of Wade Zimmerman's unexpected kindness. In her experience, men didn't offer help without expecting something in return. Yet he had asked for nothing, not even thanks. It was refreshing. Sleep finally came, and with it, the first dreamless night Sophia had experienced in months. The next morning brought clear skies and Sophia's first day of work at the White Horse Inn. Meredith's description of a mess proved to be a significant understatement. The account book showed entries scribbled in multiple hands, with frequent cross-outs and questionable arithmetic. "My late husband kept everything in his head," Meredith explained, looking embarrassed. "After he left, I tried my best, but numbers were never my strong suit." "I taught arithmetic for 5 years," Sophia assured her. "This is something I can certainly help with." She spent the morning creating a proper ledger, transferring accounts from the jumble of notebooks and scraps of paper Meredith had been using. The work was tedious but satisfying, bringing order from chaos. By mid-afternoon, Sophia had drafted a new system for tracking room rentals and meal service, created proper receipt books, and organized the haphazard collection of correspondence that had accumulated over months. "You're a godsend," Meredith declared, examining the neatly arranged desk. "I've been dreading this for years." "It's the least I can do for your kindness," Sophia replied, "though I'd like to inquire about other potential employment in town as well. I wouldn't want to overstay my welcome." Meredith waved dismissively. "Stay as long as you need. But if you're looking for other work, the mercantile might need help. The owner's wife just had their 4th child." Over the next few days, Sophia fell into a routine morning spent organizing the inn's books, afternoons exploring San Elizario and inquiring about employment. The town was indeed small, with fewer than 800 residents, but it had a frontier charm she was beginning to appreciate. She learned that the Rio Grande flowed just south of town, marking the border with Mexico. San Elizario had been settled by Spaniards in the late 1700s, and many of the oldest families still spoke Spanish as their primary language. The mix of cultures was evident in the architecture, food, and daily life of the community. On her 4th day, while helping Meredith prepare rooms for new guests, Sophia heard familiar boot steps on the wooden stairs. "Wade," Meredith greeted her brother as he appeared in the hallway. "Thought you'd be gone another day at least. Got what I needed quicker than expected." His eyes found Sophia, who was changing linens in the room across the hall. "Miss Ellington, still with us, I see." "Your sister has been most accommodating," Sophia replied, smoothing the fresh pillowcase. "And please call me Sophia. Miss Ellington seems overly formal now that I'm employed here." Wade's smile was brief but genuine. "Sophia, then." He turned back to Meredith. "I brought those hinges you wanted for the kitchen door. They're on my horse." "Wonderful. The old ones are hanging by a thread." Meredith glanced between them with poorly concealed interest. "Sophia, why don't you help Wade bring in the supplies? I need to check on a pot of stew that's likely boiling over." Before either could object, she hurried downstairs, leaving them alone in the hallway. "My sister isn't known for her subtlety," Wade said apologetically. "Don't feel obligated." "I don't mind." Sophia set aside the linens. Fresh air would be welcome after a morning of housekeeping. Outside, the April sun warmed the air pleasantly. Wade's horse, a handsome chestnut gelding, was hitched to the post in front of the inn, laden with saddlebags and parcels. "This is Thunder," Wade said, patting the horse's neck. "Best cow horse in the county." The animal nudged Wade's shoulder affectionately. Sophia smiled at the obvious bond between man and horse. "He's beautiful," she said, cautiously reaching out to stroke Thunder's nose. "I haven't been around horses much, I'm afraid. Philadelphia isn't conducive to horsemanship." "He won't bite," Wade assured her. "Gentlest animal I've ever owned, despite the name." As they unloaded the supplies, Wade asked about her adjustment to San Elizario. Sophia found herself speaking more openly than she had in years, describing both her struggles and small victories of the past days. "I inquired at the mercantile yesterday," she said, accepting a package from Wade's hands. "Mrs. Fletcher was kind but said they couldn't afford help right now." Wade handed her another parcel. "What about the newspaper? Old man Jenkins always complains about needing someone who can write proper English." "There's a newspaper here." Sophia hadn't noticed it in her exploration of the town. "The Rio Grande Chronicle. Prints weekly, mostly local happenings and advertisements." Wade untied a larger bundle from behind his saddle. "Jenkins is getting on in years. His eyesight's failing, but he's too proud to admit it." "I'll inquire tomorrow," Sophia decided, "though I know nothing about newspaper work." "You know words, don't you? That's more than most around here." Wade's eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "Besides, Jenkins would appreciate a feminine touch. Might keep him from printing those hunting stories of his that go on for pages." They finished unloading the supplies, carrying everything to the kitchen where Meredith was indeed tending to a bubbling pot of stew. "Staying for dinner?" she asked Wade. "Can't. Need to check the north pasture before dark. Had reports of wolves getting bolder since that heavy rain." He set down the last package. "But I did want to ask Sophia something." Sophia looked up in surprise. "Oh, town's having a spring dance this Saturday. Nothing fancy, just music and food at the community hall." Wade's confident demeanor seemed to falter slightly. "Thought you might like to go. Meet some of the townspeople." Meredith suddenly became very interested in stirring her stew. "That sounds lovely," Sophia said carefully. "Will you be attending as well?" "Planning to. Could escort you if you'd like." He adjusted his hat. "No obligation, of course." Sophia considered briefly. A social event would indeed help her make connections in town, and Wade's company had proven enjoyable if limited so far. "I would be delighted," she decided. "Though I must warn you, my dancing skills are rusty at best." Relief crossed Wade's features. "That makes two of us." "I usually spend these things propping up the wall." He moved toward the door. "I'll call for you around 7 then." 7 would be perfect. After Wade departed, Meredith abandoned all pretense of disinterest. "Well, that's the first time Wade's asked anyone to a dance since Clara Wilkins married the banker's son 3 years ago." "It's merely a neighborly gesture," Sophia protested. "He's been kind to a stranger, nothing more." Meredith raised an eyebrow. "Wade's kind to everyone." "He doesn't ask everyone to dances." Sophia busied herself arranging the delivered packages to hide her flushed cheeks. "What does one wear to a spring dance in San Elizario? I'm afraid my wardrobe is rather limited." "Nothing too fancy," Meredith assured her. "But I might have something that would suit you. Wait here." She returned minutes later with a dress of soft blue cotton, embellished with delicate white lace at the collar and cuffs. "Never wore it blue, doesn't suit my coloring, but with your auburn hair it would be perfect." Sophia touched the fabric reverently. It was simple compared to the fashionable gowns she'd left behind in Philadelphia, but beautifully made and far nicer than anything she'd brought with her. "Meredith, I couldn't possibly consider it payment for organizing my accounts," Meredith insisted. "It's been hanging in my wardrobe for 2 years. Might as well be worn by someone who'll do it justice." Sophia wanted to refuse, to maintain her independence despite her circumstances, but the genuine warmth in Meredith's eyes made refusal seem churlish. "Thank you," she said instead. "I'll take excellent care of it. See that you do." Meredith's smile turned mischievous. "And see that my brother has a good time. The man works too hard and smiles too little." The next day, Sophia visited the Rio Grande Chronicle office, a narrow building wedged between the barber shop and a lawyer's office. Inside, an elderly man with wild white hair and spectacles perched on the end of his nose, hunched over a desk covered in papers. "Excuse me," Sophia called after a moment of being unnoticed. "Mr. Jenkins," the man started, peering up at her. Who's asking?" "Sophia Ellington. I was told you might need assistance with your newspaper." Jenkins scrutinized her, adjusting his spectacles. "You the schoolteacher who got swindled by the board?" Word traveled quickly in small towns. "I wouldn't characterize it as highway robbery is what it was," Jenkins interrupted. "Been meaning to write an editorial about it. Board needs to be held accountable." "That's very kind but unnecessary," Sophia assured him. "I understand Mr. Zimmerman mentioned you might need help. Wade sent you." Jenkins' expression softened. "Good man, that one. Speaks his mind and means what he says." He gestured at the chaos surrounding him. "As you can see, I could use a helping hand. Can you write, spell, distinguish between news and gossip? I taught English and literature for 5 years in Philadelphia." Jenkins slapped his desk triumphantly. "Providence, that's what this is." He stood, revealing a diminutive stature. $2 a day, 3 days a week. Can you start tomorrow? The wage was modest but fair. Combined with her work at the inn, it would allow her to be self-sufficient while she determined her next steps. "I would be delighted," Sophia agreed. Jenkins showed her around the small office, explaining the newspaper's operation with enthusiasm. The Chronicle was printed on a press in the back room that looked at least 20 years old but was maintained with obvious care. "Been running this paper for 32 years, Jenkins said proudly. "Started after the war. Figured people needed truth more than ever." By the time Sophia left the office, she had a new position and a growing appreciation for the interconnected nature of small-town life. In just under a week, she'd gone from complete despair to having lodging, 2 jobs, and a social engagement. When she shared her news with Meredith, the innkeeper beamed. "Jenkins is a character, but he's got a good heart." "And the Chronicle reaches every household in the county. You'll be known to everyone in no time." "I'm not sure that's an advantage," Sophia admitted. "In Philadelphia, anonymity was a blessing." "Out here, community is what keeps folks alive," Meredith replied. "The lone wolf doesn't survive long on the frontier." Saturday evening arrived with clear skies and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of desert flowers. Sophia stood before the small mirror in her room, hardly recognizing the woman reflected back at her. The blue dress fit as if made for her, emphasizing her slender waist and complementing her fair complexion. She had arranged her auburn hair in a simple yet elegant style, with soft curls framing her face and the rest pinned up. The only jewelry she possessed, a small silver locket containing miniatures of her parents, hung at her throat. A knock at the inn's front door signaled Wade's arrival. Sophia took a deep breath, suddenly nervous. It had been over a year since she'd attended any social function, and longer still since she'd gone in the company of a man. Wade waited in the small lobby, hat in hand, dressed in clean dark trousers, a pressed white shirt, and a vest of rich brown leather. His normally windswept hair was neatly combed, and he'd clearly visited the barber. His jawline was clean-shaven, revealing a strong chin and the hint of a dimple she hadn't noticed before. When he saw her descending the stairs, his expression shifted from polite anticipation to something softer, more appreciative. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you." Sophia felt a warmth in her cheeks. "You clean up rather nicely yourself, Mr. Zimmerman." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" The community hall was a large structure near the center of town, its windows glowing with light as they approached. The sounds of a fiddle, guitar, and piano drifted into the evening air, along with laughter and conversation. Inside, the hall had been transformed with spring flowers and lanterns hanging from the rafters. Tables laden with food and drink lined one wall, while the center of the room served as a dance floor. At least 50 people of all ages filled the space, from elderly couples seated on chairs along the walls to children racing between the adults. "It's the biggest social event until Independence Day," Wade explained as they entered. "Everyone comes, ranchers, townspeople, even folks from as far as El Paso sometimes." Heads turned as they walked in, curious glances and whispered comments following their progress. Sophia fought the urge to shrink from the attention. "Don't mind them," Wade said quietly. "New faces are rare enough to be interesting. They'll lose interest soon enough." He led her through the crowd, introducing her to what seemed like dozens of people: the mercantile owner and his wife, the blacksmith and his family, ranchers whose properties bordered the Circle Z. Everyone was polite, if curious, and several of the women made pointed comments about Wade's unusual presence at a social gathering. "Mrs. Wilkes said you haven't attended a dance in years," Sophia observed after one such interaction. "Yet you invited me. Why?" Wade looked slightly uncomfortable. "Thought it would help you meet people, make connections." "That's very considerate, but I suspect there's more to it." He was saved from responding by the arrival of a tall, elegantly dressed woman with shrewd eyes and an assessing gaze. "Wade Zimmerman, what a surprise to see you socializing." Her tone suggested it was anything but a pleasant surprise. "Evening, Victoria." Wade's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. "May I introduce Miss Sophia Ellington? She's recently arrived from Philadelphia. Sophia, this is Victoria Barrett." Her father owns the largest cattle operation in the county. Victoria's gaze swept over Sophia, taking in the borrowed dress and simple jewelry. "How quaint! Philadelphia society must be very different from ours." "Every society has its merits," Sophia replied diplomatically. "I'm finding much to appreciate about San Elizario. Indeed, such as—" Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "The community's resilience, the blending of cultures, the genuine hospitality I've received." Sophia met the other woman's gaze steadily. "And the refreshing directness of the people." Wade coughed, possibly hiding a laugh. Victoria's smile tightened. "How charming. Do enjoy your evening." With a final pointed glance at Wade, she glided away to join a group of well-dressed ranchers' daughters. "I apologize for Victoria," Wade said once she was out of earshot. "Her father expects her to marry the most successful rancher in the county." "And that would be you," Sophia guessed. "Hardly. Circle Z is modest compared to the Barrett spread, but I've refused to sell my land to her father 3 times now, which apparently makes me interesting." He shook his head. "Victoria views marriage as a business arrangement." "Many do," Sophia observed. "My sister certainly did." Before Wade could respond, the music changed to a lively reel and he offered his hand. "Would you care to dance?" "I warned you I'm not skilled, but I can manage not to step on your toes." Sophia accepted, and soon found herself swept into the energetic movements of the dance. Wade had undersold his abilities. He moved with the natural grace of a man accustomed to physical work, guiding her through the steps with gentle pressure on her waist and hand. As the evening progressed, they danced several more times, ate from the abundant buffet, and continued meeting townspeople. Sophia found herself genuinely enjoying the gathering, laughing more than she had in months. During a break in the music, Wade led her outside for some fresh air. The night was cool, stars brilliant in the clear desert sky. "Thank you for inviting me," Sophia said as they strolled along the wooden sidewalk. "I've had a wonderful time." "I'm glad." Wade seemed more relaxed away from the crowd. "You've handled Victoria and the town gossips better than most newcomers." "I taught in a Philadelphia girls' school," Sophia replied with a smile. "I've faced fiercer critics than Victoria Barrett." Wade chuckled, then grew more serious. "Can I ask why you left Philadelphia? Most Easterners don't uproot their lives for a teaching position in a border town." Sophia hesitated. She'd told no one the full story, but something about Wade's straightforward manner invited confidence. "I was forced to leave," she admitted. "The head of the school where I taught developed an inappropriate interest in me. When I rejected his advances, he accused me of improper behavior with a male colleague." Wade's expression darkened. "That's despicable." "It was his word against mine, and he was a prominent man with a wealthy wife." Sophia swallowed against the remembered humiliation. "The school board asked for my resignation to avoid scandal. No other school in Philadelphia would hire me after that. So you came west." "As far as my savings would take me," she confirmed. "The San Elizario position seemed perfect, remote enough that my reputation wouldn't follow me." Wade was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm not sorry you ended up here." Something in his voice made Sophia glance up at him. The moonlight highlighted the clean lines of his profile, the sincerity in his expression. "Neither am I," she realized aloud. "Despite everything, I'm not sorry either." They stood there in comfortable silence, the distant music from the dance floating on the night air. Wade's hand found hers, his calloused fingers enveloping her smaller ones in a gentle grip. The simple contact felt more intimate than anything Sophia had experienced before. The moment was broken by the sound of approaching voices, other couples seeking air and privacy. Wade reluctantly released her hand. "We should head back," he said. "I promise to have you home at a reasonable hour." The remainder of the evening passed quickly. When the dance finally ended shortly before midnight, Wade escorted Sophia back to the White Horse Inn. At the door, he removed his hat, holding it before him like a shield. "Thank you for accompanying me tonight," he said formally. "Thank you for asking me," Sophia replied, suddenly shy. "I enjoyed myself tremendously." Wade shifted his weight, seeming to debate something internally. "I'd like to call on you again if you'd permit it." The traditional phrasing made Sophia smile. "I would like that very much." He nodded, his expression brightening. "Good night then, Sophia." "Good night, Wade." She watched from the doorway as he walked to where Thunder was hitched, mounted with fluid grace, and rode off into the night. Only when the sound of hoofbeats had faded did she close the door, pressing her back against it, as she tried to make sense of the emotions swirling within her. The practical part of her mind warned against forming attachments when her situation remained precarious. The teaching position wouldn't be reconsidered until fall, if at all. Her work at the inn and newspaper was temporary at best. Yet another part of her, long dormant, whispered that perhaps Wade Zimmerman was worth the risk. The following weeks brought a rhythm to Sophia's new life. Mornings at the White Horse, organizing accounts and helping Meredith with correspondence. 3 afternoons a week at the Rio Grande Chronicle, where she edited articles, corrected Jenkins' increasingly poor spelling, and eventually began writing pieces herself, first simple announcements, then longer features on local events and personalities. Her first bylined article, a thoughtful piece on the importance of the spring cattle drive to the local economy, earned her grudging respect from readers who had initially dismissed the Eastern schoolteacher as too refined for frontier journalism. Through it all, Wade called on her regularly. Sometimes they simply shared a meal at the inn. Other times, he took her riding on the gentlest mare from his ranch, showing her the beauty of the desert landscape surrounding San Elizario. Occasionally, they attended church socials or community gatherings together. Each meeting deepened Sophia's appreciation for the quiet rancher who had come to her aid that rainy day. Behind his reserved exterior lay a sharp mind, dry humor, and deeply held convictions about right and wrong. He spoke little of himself, but through his actions and occasional stories, she pieced together the shape of his life. He had come to Texas as a boy of 12 when his father sought land after the war. Built the Circle Z from nearly nothing after his parents died of fever when he was 21. Raised his younger sister until she married, then buried her husband when he was thrown from a horse 3 years later. Wade's life had been marked by hard work and perseverance in the face of setbacks that would have broken many men. May turned to June, and the desert bloomed briefly before the summer heat descended in earnest. On a sweltering afternoon, Sophia was working at the Chronicle office when Jenkins burst in, agitated. "Barrett's men are saying Wade Zimmerman rustled cattle," the old newsman announced without preamble. "Sheriff's forming a posse." Sophia dropped her pencil. "That's absurd. Wade would never steal." "Course he wouldn't," Jenkins agreed, "but Barrett's been wanting the Circle Z water rights for years. This could be his play to get them." Dread filled Sophia's chest. "What can we do?" "Not much. Barrett's got influence with the sheriff." Jenkins paced the small office. "But Wade's got friends too. Truth will out." Sophia could not sit idly by. "I need to go to him." "To the ranch. That's 8 miles in this heat and you don't even ride properly." "Then I'll take the mail wagon. It passes near there, doesn't it?" Jenkins nodded reluctantly. "Leaves in 20 minutes, but Wade wouldn't want you involved in this mess." "I'm already involved," Sophia said firmly, gathering her things. "He helped me when I was in trouble. I won't abandon him now." The mail wagon driver was initially reluctant to let Sophia ride along, especially when she asked to be let off near the Circle Z. "That's Barrett country," he warned. "Not safe for a lady alone with all this rustling business." "I'll be fine," Sophia insisted, pressing an extra coin into his hand. "Please." He relented, and an hour later, Sophia found herself standing on a dusty road with the Circle Z ranch house visible in the distance across a stretch of scrubland. The June heat was oppressive, the sun beating down mercilessly as she began walking toward the house. By the time she reached the ranch yard, her dress was damp with perspiration, and dust coated her boots. A ranch hand emerged from a nearby barn, eyeing her suspiciously. "Madam, can I help you?" "I'm looking for Mr. Zimmerman," Sophia said. "Is he here?" "Boss is out checking the south fence line." The cowboy frowned. "You shouldn't be here, miss. There's trouble brewing." "I know about the rustling accusations. That's why I've come." Before the hand could respond, hoofbeats approached. Wade rode into the yard, his expression shifting from wariness to shock when he saw Sophia. "What in God's name are you doing here?" he demanded, dismounting quickly. "It's not safe." "I heard about Barrett's accusations," she explained. "Mr. Jenkins told me." Wade ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "You shouldn't have come. Barrett's men have been watching the property. If they see you here, I don't care," Sophia interrupted. "These accusations are false, aren't they?" "Of course they are." Wade's voice was tight with anger. "Barrett claims I took 20 head of his prime stock. Truth is, he's trying to pressure me into selling. Cattle prices are down and he's overextended on a new breeding program. Needs my water rights to salvage his investment. Then we must prove your innocence." Wade's expression softened slightly. "We? Yes, we." Sophia met his gaze steadily. "You helped me when I had nowhere to turn. Did you think I wouldn't do the same?" For a moment, Wade looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Then he sighed. "Come inside. You're about to collapse from the heat." The ranch house was surprisingly comfortable, simply furnished, but clean and well-maintained. Wade poured her a glass of cool water from a ceramic pitcher. "Barrett's men claim to find my brand on cattle in their north pasture," he explained as Sophia drank gratefully. "But I haven't rebranded a single animal in weeks. The whole thing's manufactured. What will you do? Sheriff's coming tomorrow to inspect my herd and branding irons." Wade's jaw tightened. "Should clear things up if he's honest about it. And if he's in Barrett's pocket," Sophia asked quietly, "then I'll fight it in court." Wade sat across from her, his expression grim. "I won't let Barrett take what I've built, not with lies." Sophia reached across the table to touch his hand. "I believe you, and others will too. Mr. Jenkins already does." Wade's fingers curled around hers. "Thank you for coming. It was foolish and dangerous, but it means more than I can say." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feelings. Then Wade seemed to remember himself and released her hand. "You can't stay here," he said reluctantly. "Not with things as they are. I'll have one of the hands take you back to town." "I can help," Sophia protested. "Perhaps examine your records, establish your whereabouts when these cattle were supposedly stolen." Wade shook his head. "Barrett already views you as connected to me. I won't put you at risk." Before Sophia could argue further, a commotion outside drew their attention. Through the window, she saw several riders approaching the sheriff and 4 other men. "They're early," Wade muttered. "Stay inside." He strode out to meet them, shoulders squared and head high despite the gravity of the situation. Through the open door, Sophia could hear the conversation. "Zimmerman," the sheriff called, "we're here about them stolen cattle." "You said tomorrow, Sheriff," Wade replied evenly. "Plans changed. Barrett wants this settled now." One of the other riders pushed his horse forward, an older man with a florid complexion and cold eyes. "Found 3 more of my cattle with altered brands, Zimmerman. That makes it a hanging offense." "I haven't stolen a single head of your stock, Barrett, and you know it. We'll see about that." The older man nodded to the sheriff. "Search the place. Check the branding irons." Sophia watched as Wade stood his ground while the men dismounted. The tension in the yard was palpable, hands hovering near gun belts. Unable to remain silent, she stepped onto the porch. "Sheriff, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." All heads turned toward her. Barrett's eyebrows shot up in surprise, then his face darkened with anger. "What's the schoolteacher doing here?" he demanded. "This is ranch business." "Miss Ellington works at the Chronicle now," Wade said, his tone warning Barrett to mind his words. "And she's a guest." The sheriff looked uncomfortable. "Madam, this is no place for a lady. We're investigating serious charges." "So I understand," Sophia said calmly. "But surely an investigation should include all possible explanations, not just the most convenient one." Barrett's face reddened further. "What are you implying, woman?" "Only that a thorough sheriff would consider who benefits from these accusations." Sophia met his gaze steadily. "From what I understand, you've been trying to acquire the Circle Z for some time, Mr. Barrett." "That's enough," the sheriff interrupted. "Miss Ellington, please go inside while we conduct our business." Wade gave her a subtle nod, and Sophia reluctantly retreated, though she remained near the door where she could hear what transpired. The search was thorough, with Barrett's men examining every branding iron in the barn and inspecting the cattle in the nearest pasture. After nearly an hour, they returned to the yard. "Well," Barrett demanded, "branding irons are clean," one man reported reluctantly. No signs of recent use. And the cattle all have proper Circle Z brands, nothing altered. Barrett wasn't satisfied. Check the south pasture. He could have hidden them there. I've seen enough, the sheriff said, surprising everyone. Nothing here suggests rustling, Barrett. Your foreman might have been mistaken about those brands. Mistaken, Barrett sputtered. I saw them myself. Circle Z brands altered over mine, clear as day. Then bring me to see them, Wade challenged. Right now, let's settle this. Barrett's hesitation was telling. They've already been rebranded correctly by my men. The sheriff sighed heavily. Without evidence, I can't pursue charges. Case closed unless you find those supposedly altered cattle. Barrett's face contorted with rage. You'll regret this, Zimmerman, and you too, Sheriff. He wheeled his horse around and galloped away, his men following reluctantly. The sheriff lingered, looking uncomfortable. Wade, you've got enemies, powerful ones. Watch yourself. After they departed, Sophia rushed out to the yard. It worked. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. Wade's expression remained troubled. Barrett won't give up that easily. This was just his opening move. But surely the sheriff sees through his scheme. Sheriff Burke is basically honest, but he's also practical. Barrett has influence throughout the county. Wade shook his head. This isn't over. That night, Wade insisted Sophia remain at the ranch rather than risk traveling back to town after dark. He gave her his bedroom, taking the small bunk in his office for himself. Despite the impropriety of staying unchaperoned at a bachelor's ranch, Sophia felt safer than she would have on the road with Barrett's men potentially watching. In the morning, one of the ranch hands drove her back to San Elizario in the wagon. Meredith was frantic with worry, having heard about Sophia's impulsive journey from Jenkins. What were you thinking? She demanded. Barrett's a dangerous man when crossed. Wade needed someone to believe in him, Sophia replied simply. Just as I did when I arrived. Meredith's expression softened. You care for him. It wasn't a question, but Sophia answered anyway. Yes, more than I should, perhaps. Wade deserves happiness, Meredith said quietly. He's spent his life taking care of others, me, the ranch, his men. Maybe it's time someone took care of him for a change. The rustling accusations died down over the next week, with Sheriff Burke publicly stating that no evidence had been found to support the charges. But the damage to Wade's reputation lingered in whispers and sidelong glances when he came to town. Jenkins published a strongly worded editorial in the Chronicle questioning the timing and convenience of Barrett's claims, which further inflamed tensions. Sophia worried about retaliation but couldn't bring herself to caution the old newsman against speaking truth to power. In late June, nearly 2 months after Sophia's arrival in San Elizario, Wade invited her to a special dinner at the Circle Z. Nothing fancy, he assured her. But I'd like to show you the ranch properly, not during a crisis. Meredith helped her prepare, lending her a light summer shawl and arranging her hair in a style more elaborate than Sophia's usual simple chignon. My brother may claim it's nothing fancy, Meredith said with a knowing smile, but I've never known him to issue formal dinner invitations before. Wade arrived at precisely 6 o'clock, driving a well-maintained buggy. The evening was perfect, the worst heat of the day dissipating as the sun lowered toward the horizon, painting the desert in gold and amber. The ranch looked different in the evening light, peaceful rather than tense, the buildings casting long shadows across the yard. Wade had clearly prepared for her visit, showing her through rooms she hadn't seen during her previous hasty visit. It's lovely, Sophia said sincerely as they toured the small but comfortable house. You've created a real home here. It's been lonely at times, Wade admitted. Especially after Meredith married and moved to town. The dinner was served on the wide back porch overlooking a small garden where, surprisingly, roses bloomed despite the desert climate. "My mother started this garden," Wade explained as they ate. "Said a ranch needs something beautiful to balance all the practicality. I've kept it going since she passed." The meal was simple but delicious: roast beef, fresh vegetables from the garden, and a berry pie that Wade confessed had been made by his housekeeper, Mrs. Alvarez, who came in from town 3 times a week. As twilight deepened into night, they sat on the porch swing, watching stars appear in the vast Texas sky. Sophia felt a contentment she'd rarely experienced, a sense of belonging that transcended the short time she'd known this place and this man. "I never thanked you properly," Wade said after a comfortable silence, "for believing in me during that rustling business." "You didn't need to thank me," Sophia replied. "You would have done the same." "Yes." Wade turned slightly to face her on the swing. "Sophia, there's something I need to say." She could hear the seriousness in his voice. "What is it?" "When you came to San Elizario, I had no intention of becoming involved with anyone. After Clara married someone else, I decided relationships weren't worth the complication." Sophia's heart sank. Was this his way of ending their association? "But then I saw you that day crying beside your luggage," he continued, his voice softening. "Something changed. I can't explain it except to say that helping you didn't feel like a choice. It felt necessary, like breathing." He took her hand gently. "These past weeks, getting to know you, spending time with you, I've never felt this way before, not even with Clara." Sophia could barely breathe. "Wade, let me finish, please." His fingers tightened around hers. "I know your life here isn't settled yet. The teaching position might open again, or you might find something better elsewhere. I wouldn't want to hold you back, but I need you to know that I've fallen in love with you, Sophia Ellington." The simple declaration, spoken without flourish or excessive sentiment, moved her more than the most poetic professions could have. "I love you too," she whispered, the words coming easily despite her previous caution. "I think I began falling the moment you offered to carry my burden." Wade's smile transformed his face, erasing the worry lines that had become habitual since the rustling accusations. "I'd carry any burden for you," he said, drawing her closer on the swing. "If you'd let me." Their first kiss was gentle, almost tentative, a question rather than a demand. When Sophia responded, her hand moving to his shoulder, Wade deepened the kiss, his arms encircling her waist with protective tenderness. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Wade rested his forehead against hers. "I should take you back to town before this becomes improper." "Yes," Sophia agreed reluctantly, "though I wish the evening didn't have to end." Wade helped her to her feet, keeping hold of her hand. "There's something else I wanted to ask you. Not tonight, it's too soon, I know, but someday soon. Would you consider making your home here, with me?" Though not a formal proposal, the meaning was clear. Sophia felt joy bubbling up inside her. "I would consider it," she said, trying to match his serious tone despite her smile. "Very favorably." The ride back to town passed in comfortable conversation and occasional comfortable silences, their hands linked between them on the buggy seat. At the inn door, Wade kissed her again, this time with more assurance. "Good night, Sophia." "Good night, Wade." Inside, Sophia found Meredith waiting up, pretending to mend linens. "Well," her friend demanded, "how was dinner?" Sophia couldn't contain her smile. "Wonderful, perfect, actually." Meredith set aside her sewing. "Did he ask you?" "Not formally," Sophia admitted. "But he mentioned the possibility. For the future." "Finally." Meredith threw up her hands in mock exasperation. "I was beginning to think he'd never find the courage." July brought scorching heat and the beginning of what would become known as the Barrett-Zimmerman Water War. Barrett, frustrated in his rustling scheme, filed a legal claim asserting that Wade was diverting water from a stream that should rightly flow to Barrett land. The dispute quickly divided the town, with the wealthier ranchers supporting Barrett while most of the townspeople sided with Wade, who had always dealt fairly with them. Jenkins used the Chronicle to rally public opinion against water theft through legal chicanery, as he colorfully described Barrett's tactics. Sophia found herself unwillingly at the center of the conflict, particularly after she wrote a meticulously researched article examining water rights law in Texas. Barrett publicly denounced her as Zimmerman's Eastern mouthpiece, while others praised her objective analysis. The tension came to a head in early August when Barrett's men constructed a dam on contested land, cutting off water to a portion of Circle Z grazing land during the driest part of summer. Wade and his hands rode out to confront them, leading to a tense standoff that nearly erupted into violence before Sheriff Burke intervened. Through it all, Wade and Sophia's relationship deepened. They saw each other whenever possible, though Wade's ranch responsibilities and the water conflict limited their time together. Each meeting confirmed what they already knew, that what had begun as chance encounter in the rain had grown into a love neither had expected to find. In mid-August, Judge Harmon arrived from El Paso to hear arguments in the water dispute. The courthouse, actually the community hall temporarily converted, was packed with interested citizens. Sophia sat with Meredith and Jenkins, anxiously watching as first Barrett's lawyer and then Wade's presented their cases. Barrett's attorney, an expensive import from Austin, spoke eloquently about historical water usage and property boundaries. Wade's lawyer, the local attorney Samuel Reed, countered with simple facts and original land grant documentation showing the water rights had always belonged to what was now the Circle Z. After a day of testimony, Judge Harmon retired to consider his verdict. The town buzzed with speculation. Wagers were placed, and both Barrett and Wade prepared for either outcome. The following morning, with the courthouse again filled to capacity, Judge Harmon delivered his ruling. Having reviewed all evidence and documentation, he announced, this court finds that water rights to Cottonwood Creek belong, without question or limitation, to the Circle Z Ranch as currently owned by Mr. Wade Zimmerman. A cheer went up from Wade's supporters. Barrett, sitting in the front row, turned an alarming shade of purple. Furthermore, the judge continued, this court finds that Mr. Barrett's dam constitutes illegal interference with said water rights. It is to be removed within 24 hours at Mr. Barrett's expense. As the crowd dispersed, Sophia made her way through the throng to Wade's side. His expression was one of relief rather than triumph. Congratulations, she said, squeezing his hand. Justice prevailed. This time, Wade agreed. But Barrett won't give up. He'll find another angle. Let him try, Sophia replied with more confidence than she felt. You've proven you'll fight for what's yours. Wade's eyes held hers. Yes, I will, always. That evening they celebrated the victory with a small gathering at the White Horse. Wade, Sophia, Meredith, Jenkins, and attorney Reed. The mood was jovial, though Wade remained watchful, aware that Barrett's humiliation made him more dangerous, not less. As summer began to wane, rumors circulated that the school board was reconsidering the teaching position. The superintendent's nephew had indeed found frontier life uncongenial and was returning east at the end of the term. When Jenkins confirmed the rumors in late August, Sophia found herself facing an unexpected dilemma. The teaching position had been her original goal, the reason for her journey west. Yet her life had changed dramatically since that rainy April day. She now had work she enjoyed at the Chronicle, friends throughout the community, and most importantly, Wade. She confided her confusion to Meredith one evening as they sat on the inn's front porch, enjoying a rare, cool breeze. "The school board chairman approached me today," Sophia explained. "They're prepared to offer me the position for the fall term. That's wonderful news." Meredith exclaimed, then frowned at Sophia's lack of enthusiasm. "Isn't it? It should be." Sophia sighed. "It's what I came here for, but now you're wondering if it's what you still want," Meredith finished for her. "Because of Wade." "Not just Wade," Sophia clarified. "Though he's a significant factor, of course. I've found I enjoy journalism more than I expected. Mr. Jenkins has even suggested I might take over the Chronicle eventually when he retires." "You could do both," Meredith suggested. "Teach during the day, work at the paper in the evenings." "Perhaps." Sophia twisted her hands in her lap. "But there's also the matter of expectations. If Wade and I were to marry, would the school board still want me as a teacher?" "Married female teachers are rare," Meredith acknowledged. "But not unheard of in places like this where qualified instructors are scarce. And if we had children, would I be expected to resign? Probably." Meredith patted her hand. "But those are bridges to cross when you reach them. Has Wade formally proposed yet?" "Not yet, though we've discussed it." Sophia smiled at the memory of their conversations about the future. "He's been focused on the water dispute and fall roundup preparations." "Well, don't make decisions based on possibilities," Meredith advised. "Take the teaching position if you want it. The rest will sort itself out." The next day, Sophia rode out to the Circle Z with Jenkins' borrowed mare. Wade was surprised but pleased to see her, immediately setting aside the ledgers he'd been reviewing. "This is an unexpected pleasure," he said, kissing her cheek. "Is everything all right?" Sophia explained about the teaching offer, watching his expression carefully. "I wanted to discuss it with you before giving them my answer." Wade led her to the porch swing, their usual spot for important conversations. "What's your inclination?" "I'm torn," she admitted. "Teaching was my purpose in coming here, but now I've found other work I enjoy, and there's us to consider." "Us?" Wade raised an eyebrow. "If we were to formalize our relationship, would you object to my teaching? Some men prefer their wives not to work outside the home." Wade was quiet for a moment, considering. "I've never given it much thought," he admitted. "My mother helped my father run this ranch as a true partner. Meredith runs the inn herself. I suppose I've never seen women's work as limited to the household." Relief flooded through Sophia. "So you wouldn't mind? If teaching makes you happy, I'd never stand in your way." Wade took her hand. "But I hope you're not making this decision based solely on what I might want." "No," Sophia assured him. "I'm trying to determine what I want, which has become more complicated than I expected." Wade nodded thoughtfully. "Then may I suggest something? Accept the position, see how it feels to be back in a classroom. Nothing need be permanent." His practical approach settled something in Sophia's mind. "That's very sensible advice." "I have my moments." Wade's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Though I must admit, I've been considering my own proposal that might affect your decision." Sophia's heart quickened. "Oh," Wade shifted to face her directly, taking both her hands in his. "I've been waiting for the right moment, but perhaps there is no perfect time." He took a deep breath. "Sophia Ellington, I love you. These past months have shown me what was missing from my life. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Though she had anticipated this moment, the reality of it, Wade's earnest expression, the warmth of his hands holding hers, the love evident in every line of his face overwhelmed her. "Yes," she whispered, then more strongly, "Yes, Wade, I would be honored to be your wife." Joy transformed his features as he pulled her into an embrace, his lips finding hers in a kiss that promised a lifetime of shared happiness. When they finally parted, Wade reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "This was my mother's," he explained, opening it to reveal a delicate gold band set with a small diamond. "It's not elaborate, but it's perfect," Sophia interrupted as he slipped it onto her finger. The ring fit as if made for her. They spent the remainder of the afternoon planning their future, a wedding in October after the fall roundup. Sophia teaching at least through the spring term, weekends at the ranch and weeknights in town until the school year ended. And after that? Wade asked as they walked arm in arm through the rose garden his mother had planted. "After that, we'll decide together," Sophia replied. "Perhaps I'll continue teaching or focus on the Chronicle or simply be the best rancher's wife in West Texas." Wade laughed, the sound warming her heart. "You could never be simply anything." Sophia Ellington. Their engagement announcement in the Chronicle caused a stir in San Elizario. Most reactions were positive. Wade was well respected, and Sophia had earned the community's goodwill through her fair reporting and willingness to stand by Wade during the water dispute. Victoria Barrett's congratulations were noticeably absent, and her father made a point of crossing the street to avoid Wade in town. But their disapproval seemed insignificant compared to the happiness Sophia and Wade had found. The fall term began with Sophia installed as the teacher in San Elizario's one-room schoolhouse. 28 students ranging from 6 to 16 years old filled the benches, a mix of Anglo, Hispanic, and mixed heritage children reflecting the border community's diverse population. Teaching while planning a wedding proved challenging but rewarding. Sophia found she hadn't lost her love for education, particularly in this setting where practical knowledge was valued alongside book learning. Her students were largely eager to learn, though a few required firm guidance. September passed in a whirl of lessons, newspaper deadlines, and wedding preparations. Meredith insisted on hosting the reception at the White Horse, while the ceremony would take place in the small church where Wade had been baptized as a boy. Wade, meanwhile, prepared the ranch house for his bride, adding feminine touches with Meredith's guidance and building a larger bookcase to accommodate Sophia's modest but cherished collection of volumes. October arrived with cooler temperatures and final preparations for both the wedding and the fall roundup. The latter would keep Wade busy for a week gathering cattle from the far reaches of Circle Z land, but he promised to return in plenty of time for the ceremony. 3 days before Wade was due to ride out for the roundup, Barrett made his final move. Under cover of darkness, his men set fire to a Circle Z line shack near the contested water source. When Wade and his hands rode out to extinguish the blaze, they were ambushed by masked riders. Word reached town the next morning when one of Wade's injured cowboys rode in seeking the doctor. Sophia was teaching when Jenkins burst into the schoolhouse, his white hair wild and his expression grave. "Wade's been shot," he announced without preamble. Barrett's men ambushed them at Cottonwood Creek. The classroom erupted in gasps and murmurs as Sophia's heart seemed to stop. "How bad?" she managed to ask. "Alive, but that's all I know." Jenkins looked at the wide-eyed students. "School's dismissed. Go on home, all of you." As the children gathered their things and filed out, Sophia fought to maintain her composure. "I need to go to him." "Doctor's already headed out with Sheriff Burke," Jenkins said. "I've got a buggy waiting." The journey to the Circle Z seemed interminable. Jenkins drove as fast as the rough roads allowed, while Sophia sat rigid beside him, her mind filled with terrible possibilities. They had come so far, found such unexpected happiness it couldn't end like this. At the ranch, they found activity centered around the bunkhouse rather than the main house. Sheriff Burke's horse was hitched outside, along with the doctor's buggy and several other mounts. Inside, Wade lay on a bunk, his face pale but his eyes open. His left shoulder was bandaged and dried blood stained his torn shirt. When he saw Sophia, relief washed over his features. "I'm all right," he said before she could speak. "Bullet went clean through. Doc says I'll be sore but healing in no time." Sophia rushed to his side, taking his uninjured right hand in both of hers. "What happened?" Sheriff Burke answered from where he stood near the door. "Ambush, plain and simple. Barrett's men fired on Wade and his hands when they went to put out a fire at the line shack." "You can prove it was Barrett?" Jenkins asked. "Got one of them in custody," Burke confirmed grimly. "Young fellow named Ellis, singing like a bird about how Barrett ordered the whole thing fire to draw them out, then gunfire from the ridge." Wade winced as he shifted position. "Barrett wasn't there himself. Too clever for that." "Doesn't matter," the sheriff said. "Conspiracy to commit murder is enough to send him away for years. Judge Harmon's already been telegraphed. He'll be here tomorrow to take statements." The doctor, a grizzled man in his 60s, shooed them all back. "My patient needs rest, not an audience. Miss Ellington can stay, the rest of you clear out." Alone with Wade, Sophia finally let her composure slip. Tears filled her eyes as she gently touched his face. "I was so afraid." "Takes more than Barrett's cowards to keep me from our wedding," Wade said, attempting a smile despite his obvious pain. "Though I may need to lean on you during the ceremony." "You can lean on me forever," Sophia whispered, carefully embracing him. "That's what marriage is, isn't it? Carrying each other's burdens." Wade's good arm tightened around her. "Just like I promised that first day." Barrett was arrested the following day, his protestations of innocence undermined by Ellis's detailed confession and corroborating evidence found at his ranch. The water war that had divided San Elizario ended not with legal documents but with criminal charges. Despite his injury, Wade insisted the wedding proceed as planned. By mid-October, his arm was in a sling but healing well, and color had returned to his face. The fall roundup was handled by his experienced hands with minimal supervision, allowing Wade to focus on his recovery and upcoming nuptials. The wedding day dawned clear and cool, perfect October weather. Sophia prepared in Meredith's rooms at the inn, wearing a gown of ivory satin that Meredith had helped her make. Simple yet elegant, it suited both Sophia's taste and the frontier setting of their marriage. "Something borrowed," Meredith said, fastening a pearl necklace around Sophia's throat. "These were our mother's. Wade will recognize them." "It's beautiful," Sophia touched the lustrous beads. "Thank you." "Thank you," Meredith countered, unexpectedly emotional, "for bringing my brother happiness. After our parents died, he took on so much responsibility. I worried he'd never allow himself joy." "He's brought me just as much happiness," Sophia assured her, "more than I ever thought possible after leaving Philadelphia." The small church filled quickly with townspeople and ranchers from throughout the county. Jenkins gave Sophia away, proudly escorting her down the aisle to where Wade waited, handsome despite his sling, his eyes never leaving her face as she approached. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. When they exchanged vows, promises to love, honor, and cherish through all life's joys and hardships, Sophia thought of that rainy day when a stranger had offered to help carry her burden. How fitting that they would now promise to carry each other's burdens for a lifetime. "I now pronounce you man and wife," the minister declared. "You may kiss your bride." Wade's kiss was gentle but filled with promise, sealing their commitment before God and community. As they turned to face the congregation as husband and wife, Sophia saw nothing but genuine happiness in the faces surrounding them. The reception at the White Horse Inn lasted well into the evening, with music, dancing, modified to accommodate Wade's injury, and enough food to satisfy even the hungriest ranch hands. Sophia and Wade circulated among their guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes from friends and neighbors who had witnessed their journey from strangers to spouses. As twilight fell, they slipped away to the waiting buggy that would take them to the Circle Z, their home now, not just Wade's. The ranch hands had decorated the gateway with flowers and ribbons, a surprising touch of sentimentality from the tough cowboys. Inside, the house was warm and welcoming, with a fire burning in the hearth and fresh flowers from the garden arranged in vases throughout the rooms. Wade carried Sophia across the threshold despite his injury, refusing her protests with a grin. "I've been practicing," he admitted, setting her down carefully in the parlor. "Couldn't skip the tradition, even with a bum shoulder." "You're impossible," Sophia laughed, then grew more serious as she looked around what was now their home. "It's perfect, Wade, all of it." "Not quite perfect yet," he replied, drawing her into his arms, "but it will be with you here." In the months that followed, Sophia and Wade settled into the rhythm of married life, adjusting to each other's habits, finding compromises when their preferences differed, and creating new traditions together. Sophia continued teaching through the spring term while working part-time at the Chronicle, spending weekdays in town and weekends at the ranch. By summer, they had established a comfortable pattern. Wade expanded the rose garden, adding varieties Sophia admired, while she learned the basics of ranch management to assist during busy periods. They hosted dinner parties for friends, attended community events together, and slowly transformed the Circle Z into a true home for both of them. 1 year after their wedding, in October 1874, Sophia resigned from her teaching position. Not, as some townspeople assumed, because married life had changed her priorities, but because a more compelling opportunity had presented itself. "Jenkins is serious about retiring," she told Wade over breakfast one morning. "He's offered to sell me the Chronicle." Wade looked up from his coffee, surprised but intrigued. "You want to be a newspaper publisher?" "I do," Sophia confirmed. "The work suits me, the writing, the investigation, connecting with the community. And with Barrett gone, the paper needs a strong voice more than ever." Wade considered this, then nodded slowly. "You'd be excellent at it, but can we afford to buy the Chronicle?" "Between the drought and cattle prices, Jenkins isn't asking for much," Sophia explained. "He cares more about the paper's future than profit, and I've saved most of my teaching salary." The pride in Wade's eyes warmed her heart. "Then you should do it. San Elizario needs a good newspaper, and you're the right person to run it." By spring 1875, the Rio Grande Chronicle had a new publisher and editor, S.E. Zimmerman, as her byline now read. Under Sophia's guidance, the paper expanded its coverage, added correspondence in neighboring communities, and became a respected voice in West Texas journalism. Wade, meanwhile, continued building the Circle Z into one of the region's most respected ranches, known for quality stock and fair business practices. The water rights that Barrett had coveted proved crucial during drought years, allowing the Circle Z to thrive when other operations struggled. In December 1875, Sophia and Wade welcomed their first child, a son they named James, after Wade's father. 2 years later, their daughter Elizabeth joined the family, followed by another son, Thomas, in 1879. The children grew up in a household filled with books and stories, equally comfortable in the saddle or the schoolroom. Sophia continued running the Chronicle, bringing the children to the office when they were young and later teaching them the newspaper business as they grew older. Through droughts and floods, economic hardships and prosperous years, The foundation of their life together remained the promise they had made to each other that rainy April day in 1873, to share each other's burdens, to face life's challenges together rather than alone. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Wade surprised Sophia with a journey to Philadelphia, her first return to the city since her hasty departure. They visited her sister, with whom relations had cautiously improved through years of correspondence, and Sophia showed Wade the places that had shaped her earlier life. Standing before the school where she had once taught, Sophia reflected on how differently her life had unfolded than she had imagined. "Any regrets?" Wade asked, noticing her contemplative mood. "Not one," Sophia replied truthfully. "That day when the stagecoach left me at San Elizario station seemed like the worst of my life. Now I know it was the best." Wade squeezed her hand. "For me too. Who would have thought finding a woman crying beside her luggage would change everything?" "You said you'd carry that burden too," Sophia reminded him, leaning against his shoulder. "And you have every day since." "The lightest burden I've ever carried," Wade said softly, "and the most precious." They returned to Texas, and the life they had built together, a life neither had envisioned but both treasured. The Circle Z flourished, the Chronicle became an institution in the county, and their children grew strong and capable in the challenging frontier environment. Years passed, bringing changes to San Elizario and the surrounding territory. The railroad finally reached them in 1881, bringing new opportunities and challenges. Sophia documented the transformation in her newspaper, while Wade adapted his ranching operations to the changing market conditions. Through it all, their partnership remained steadfast, two people who had found each other by chance, but chose to build a life together by design. The burdens they carried for each other were balanced by the joys they shared, creating a marriage that served as an example to their children and community. On spring evenings, they often sat in the porch swing Wade had built during their courtship, watching the sunset paint the desert in gold and purple. In those quiet moments, with the scent of roses drifting from the garden, they would sometimes reminisce about that rainy day when fate had brought them together. "You remember what you said?" Sophia would ask, though she knew the answer by heart. And Wade, his hair now streaked with silver but his eyes still bright with love, would always reply, "Let me carry that burden too."